Oh, it's Alex time.
Yeah, so this is a
Stop.
similar...
Alex time.
Sailing over the Dogger Bank, now wasn't it a treat? The wind was blowing east northeast, we had to give a sheet.
I was thinking more like it's Chico time.
There's the difference in the musical approach.
Well, I was gonna say age.
Age. I agree.
So this is a similar thing to what Kate talked about, about having a song or a verse like every 5-10 years or something. Like I don't consider myself as a songwriter at all, and sometimes they arrive to you, and this was one of those. It's called Celestial Tea, and it's a song about tea, but this actually came out more of a dark place, really. I don't tell the story at gigs normally because it normally pulls the whole thing flat, and it's a very silly song. But the when I wrote this when I first moved over to America, which was in 2015. But in the spring of 2015 was when I got quite seriously ill, and I was in hospital for a couple of months. And I couldn't. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to, I couldn't play instruments during that time. So all I really did have that was functional was my voice, and I could sing and I could do things. And this song came out of creation from me just being in a hospital bed for a couple of months, and I had really, really good fun writing it. It was a really fun song that sort of just started arriving to me in bits, and it's sort of the story I tell about it, which is somewhat true, is sort of my frustration on the bad tea in America, and it's actually not that hard to find decent tea. But I was in a hospital, and we all know what hospital food is like. So equal that with beverage as well. I couldn't brew my own, so I have hot water with what's the bad tea over here? Lipton's, yeah, with a sort of like half dunked Lipton's tea bag. It was just
I love Lipton. I love Lipton's iced tea, but I hear that their tea is very bad. So.
Yes, it's very bad. Yeah, but yeah, so it came out of frustration of tea, and then I sort of just got carried away and wrote the song in my hospital bed. But it gave me a lot of joy during that time, so it gives me kind of a mixed feeling of happy nostalgia and kind of like, it was a hard time, but out of it came a very fun, silly song, of which you will hear now if it's not Ross Cooper.
Come ladies and come gentlemen, oh do gather round. I'll tell you of a substance that'll make you feel sound. It keeps you feeling solid and awake you to see. And when you take a sip, yes, it will fill you with glee. Oh, drink it in the morning and the afternoon, and drink it in the evening by the light of the moon. Oh, get that teapot ready.
Another instance of the moon.
You cannot go wrong with a cup of celestial tea. When you're waking up from a night on the tune, you need to feel alive as you.
And one thing I remember being absolutely delighted with when I wrote the song and I was singing it by myself for a while a cappella, but it was obvious that this song had to be for the Teacups. Like we'd been a band for 10 years and we had no songs about tea. Like it had to be. And the one vision I had was it to have that kind of like silly, almost musical-esque sound, like Andrew's Sister aspects to it. And you three just kind of nailed exactly what I had in mind for it. But I think one of the big moments of that was realizing that I shouldn't be the one singing the tune. I shouldn't be the one singing the melody, because it needed that cheesy bass line, and it really needed that kind of like standard SATB thing that we'd kind of actually been avoiding. But this song, I feel like, needed it, and we kind of slotted it in perfectly. You all did such a good job.
That teapot ready, and you will see you cannot go wrong with a cup of celestial tea. The sun is shining bright.
It's another phrase that's really fun to sing. You cannot go wrong with a cup of celestial. Like, it's a lot of fun to say.
Just cannot be without your thermos flask full of your favorite tea. Oh, drink it in the morning and the afternoon, and drink it in the evening by the light of the moon. Oh, get that teapot ready, and you will see you can.
I just love the delivery of where you get that kind of miss beat on well, I'll point it out when it comes next time. It'll be easier to point it out.
Fruity rooibos as well. Just so many flavors, it is so hard to tell. Do you have honey and ginger masala chai, or just Builder's Best? Or chamomile, peppermint, fancy shong, or some lemon zest? Oh, drink it in the morning and the afternoon, and drink it in the evening by the light of the moon. Oh, get that teapot ready.
That bit. Get the teapot ready. I love that bit.
You cannot go wrong with a cup of celestial tea. Oh, drink it in the morning and the afternoon. And
Special guest appearance by Pete at that point. Pete providing clicks.
ready and you will see. You cannot go wrong with a cup to lift your spirits up, up and up. You cannot go wrong with a cup of celestial tea.
I will add something about the clicks. Is I was really worried because Pete does a lot of really great albums, and a lot of albums involve his hands in some way. Not like that, but there's so many of the albums, including the first album you did with us, involve hand claps. And both albums that I've done with Nicola and with you, I think, involve some of your hand clappings. I think there's hand claps in Will and Rosie's one you did with them.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
And I was concerned that this would not have any Pete hand claps. And while it doesn't, it does have you clicking. So I feel like we're in safe territory here.
I just love the ending of that song so much as well. Just the kind of, because we do enjoy like a scoop to a last note, like we do that in a few of our arrangements, but none of them quite as
have a bend.
Yeah,
well,
like not quite as indulgently as that, and it just seems just right for the style, you know.
I'm pretty sure that was my suggestion, and I nicked it. Well, I was inspired by directly the Dixie Chicks. They've got a song. I can't remember. I think it's called White Trash Wedding. But the beginning bit goes, you can't afford no ring, you can't afford no ring. I shouldn't be wearing white and you can't afford no ring. And I just thought, this every time we sang that line, the Dixie Chicks bit popped into my head, and I just thought, I bet that's going to work really well. So that's where that one came from, in my mind.
A great thought.
Now, I have one more thing, which I haven't shared. I think only a few people have heard, but I've written a new verse to it. Would you like to hear it?
Oh,
bit of a
my word.
yes,
Unexpected.
Oh, yeah, it's probably a good time
I know.
for that, isn't it?
It was unexpected for me too, don't worry. When you are stuck at home, having to self-isolate, you miss the outdoors and your mood isn't great. You need to spice your life up to pass the time by, so fill yourself a cup of some masala.
Chai!
There we go.
Very good.
Excellent.
Very good.
Topical verse.
Very good.
I think it was good, Al, but we'll go for another take.
Oh, the words that haunt my dreams.
Excellent.
Amazing.
All right, Rose, we'll move to your vignette next.
Yeah. So
This is mint.
it's quite funny, this one, because everyone else had sort of decided on whatever they wanted to do for their vignette some time before I kind of settled on this, and I was kind of feeling the pressure a little bit of like, oh god, I need to do something, and I don't know what it's going to be. And my original thought was I quite wanted Will to lead it, because I sort of lead his, kind of, in as much as we all sort of lead it because it's around. Mm-hmm. So so I found this phrase in a story, and it's the idea of it being that it's something to make you feel happy when you're sad and to make you feel sad when you're happy, just the concept that nothing is permanent and this situation will come to an end, whatever it is. And it just seemed really kind of lovely and poignant to me. So I kind of was playing around with it, and I made this tune, and I was like, Will, try singing this. And we just realised quite quickly that it was such a me
It wasn't
tune.
a me tune.
Like, it just fit into my voice in a way that it didn't fit into Will's, sadly. So I was a bit frustrated about that, but then Will wrote the three other parts for it. He wrote the arrangement and just did such an incredible job with it that I can't even be mad about that, basically.
I'm so happy with how it turned out. Like, I think over time, my sort of favourite tracks of an album usually kind of, different tracks come to the fore and, and come in and out of vogue in my own mind. But like, at least for now, and I suspect it will be for a while, this is my favorite track on the album. Like I
Yeah.
I have strong feelings about it, but maybe I'll say some more about it afterwards.
But Rosie's delivery on this is just
Oh,
mint.
yeah.
And you can totally see you wrote it, and you wrote it for your voice, because it is just oof. And actually, the first time I'd heard it properly was actually in the studio when your 3 parts were already recorded, and it was so exciting and thrilling. And then I had to try and do the part. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you finished. Sorry to interrupt. I would be really interested if people didn't know which vignette was whose, whether they could pin them on the right people. You know, that would be really.
All right, let's start again. Right,
pin the vignette on the teacup.
Pin the vignette on the teacup. Yeah,
This
we
is,
should do that at gigs.
This is one of those that, and interestingly, well, unlike other songs we've had demos for before, like you say, you wrote this during the recording process. So really, we just got like a Sibelius file before anyone knew anymore. And this is one of those ones that when I heard the Sibelius file and I heard this mix, like the second that file arrived, as soon as that arrived and I played it through, I was like, the mix that we've ended up with is exactly what I heard the second those weird MIDI voices came through. So
Which is why we're all going,
oh my goodness, Sibelius vocal sounds are just bonkers. Like they don't make anything sound good. So yeah, no, I think we've done a good job on making it not sound like that, basically.
Sound like real humans.
Yeah.
And who was to know that it would become so poignant for now?
Yeah, absolutely.
This too shall pass. 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 This too shall pass.
oof.
Crikey. What's
Now-
interesting about that one, I think, for me, is that I think, Will, you sort of posted it in our online forum area for us to listen to before we recorded it, and I hadn't. You finished it, and then I went to the studio to record it, and I hadn't had time to listen to it, and I hadn't seen you in that time. So the first time really I did anything with it, even sang it through, was in the studio with Pete. So we've never. I can't believe there's a thing that we've made that is like that we've never been in the same room and sung together.
I'm not even
really,
sure.
really hope that we get the opportunity to do that, because to be perfectly honest, I haven't sung it since either, and
Me neither.
I can't remember what my part is.
I would love
really
it so
like
much,
to make sure
but,
we do that and get a chance to really sing that together, preferably somewhere really spooky like a cave. That would be
Lovely.
nice.
Like, oh mate, I'm honestly not even sure if we could get through it in one piece. Like, it's so, there's a lot to it.
I think it's worth a go.
There's a
definitely
brief
worth a
story
go.
that I'd love to tell about that one, which is we've already mentioned Ellie Grassick, who did the fantastic album art, and she's a really, really good friend of ours, of Rosie and mine's, and she had effectively an advanced copy of the album in order to kind of be inspired for the album art, to like base it on the music itself so it could inform it. That's what I'm looking for. So it could inform the album art as well. And she gave some lovely feedback about that track, which I'm trying to remember the exact wording for because it was lovely. But she was talking about different tracks she'd listened to, and it was something along the conversation was something along the lines of her going, "Oh yeah, and I'm This Too Shall Pass, like, wow, that deliberately explores a range of emotions, right?" I was like, yeah, absolutely. She was like, "Thank God it ends cheerily."
It's a journey.
It's true. It is. It is the right sort of
is.
journey. But I have one story with that one as well. It's a lot of stories for a very short pieces. But
yeah, it's just one sentence 8 times as well. You know?
It says so much.
But I remember my situation was the same as Kate, that we'd received it and we kind of I sang my part. But I remember quite early on into recording my part, Pete sort of like going over through the headphones, going, "Do you think you can try doing it an octave lower?" And it was like, are you swear wording kidding me? Because that is mental low, and I think we couldn't do it on that same time. I think we had to do it at a different time, like in the morning or something, where my voice was quite low and gruff, and I
think we may have done it over multiple points in the day, to be honest. We had one epic day of recording because it was like 2 days before you flew back to the States, and we had like 9 songs to crack out or something ridiculous. And you came into the studio, and this was one of them. And I have a feeling there was moments. Basically, what happened was you'd go, "Ooh, I think I can get one of those low notes." So we just drop in, and you're like, you do a word. Yeah, and then you'd be like, "Right, I've got no more of those in me." So when we move on to something else,
I feel one coming on.
You're right. I do remember just singing one word and go, "Bah."
Yeah, and then it'd crack a bit, and you go, "Yep, nope, no more of those." And
then we'll crack on with a nice like "Dance to Your Daddy" or something. Yeah.
Alex, you nail it though. That it's like it's the 4th line or something. Like this two shall part. Like it's love it. You really get it.
That's
right.
part of Pete's production on it as well, because again, like we were saying earlier, that is not really that audible. And I had to sort of eat the mic to do it, and sort of the EQing around it really does it justice. It's really lovely.
Yeah, I was basically visualizing Gandalf all the way through. Even though it's not the right phrase, it was just kind of the vibe that.
That's gonna be the hidden track for this one. That's gonna be the bonus track as we do that arrangement to "You Shall Not Pass."
Amazing.
Right, shall we crack on?
Yeah,
let's just jump straight into the next one. I think.
Last Valentine's Day, bright Phoebus shone clear, and we hadn't been a-hunting in the space of
This is another waltz, Will.
Last Valentine's Day, bright Phoebus shone clear, and we hadn't been a-hunting in the space of 1 year. Well, I mounted Black Plover, that horse of great fame, for to hear the horns blow and the words tally-ho. Hark forward, who cries tally-ho, tally-ho.
You can tell this is a classic
Very
style.
rare times you'll ever hear me do an ornament.
I was gonna say this is
really lovely though.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
He had no sooner spoke than a fox he espied. Hark, hark into cover, Colonel
This was one I always think of as being like a very classic early Teacup sound. It's like that. It's like Three Jolly Rogues, or like that sort of like that bright Lincolnshire Poacher style.
Yeah, and it's really appeals to me, that kind of very English sounding kind of pastoral kind of material, you know, which I'm kind of trying to branch out of now because I feel like I've been doing that a long time now.
It's a really nicely traditional sound. I'm really into it.
Then up stepped Jim Norris, he cared not a pin, when he paused at the stream and his horse tumbled in. And as he crossed over, he spied the bold wren, with his tongue hanging out, heading back to his den.
This is one bassline. This is one I remember arranging, and like we tried a lot of different things to do with it, until we came to the realization that the simplicity really is what makes this song. And we tried to sort of overcomplicate it in some earlier versions of the arrangement, and we settled on this, which I think is just mint. It does exactly what it needs to, and it shows that you really don't have to do anything crazy for a song to sound really
So
nice.
fill up your glasses,
Which I think is also a story of the whole album.
For while we are hunters, we never shall shrink. Hark forward, who cries tally ho, tally ho. Hark forward, who cries tally ho. Hark forward, who cries tally ho, tally ho. Hark forward, who cries tally ho.
Oh, that one's fun.
I do like a good hunting song. They've always got good tunes, hunting songs for some reason.
Yeah, unfortunate subject matter, but lovely tunes.
Yeah.
It always
There's
comes with a
but that
caveat,
one-
doesn't it?
It came off. I think it came off an LP of hunting songs, and there was just a load of really interesting stuff on it that I'd never heard before. There was that one, and there's another one that's a sort of sung slip jig that I've tried to do something with several times and just can't kind of get anything I like. But I'm really kind of drawn to hunting songs for some reason. I don't know.
I remember hearing the original version of that, and you've done quite a bit of work on that song. That it's much more of a Kate Moxley creation.
There's not so many tally-hos as there once were.
Yeah, and the chorus
That's right. I
the
forgot
chorus
we
is like
changed the chorus, didn't
100%
we?
better than it ever was. Yeah, I can't remember how the
I'd
chorus goes
forgotten
now.
about
But
it went something like tally ho, tally ho, tally ho, tally ho. Who sings and who shouts and who cries tally ho? And I just thought I can't sing tally ho that many times. That's too many tally ho's for anybody. So we changed it. But I quite like what we've ended up with.
It's fantastic. There's a brief story about the editing of that song, which I'm tempted to tell. Which when we were kind of doing all the critical listening and feedback for this album, there was part of the feedback for that one where I noticed on like my second or third listen through that some aspect of the editing of Rosie's part right near the end had ended up that like just a couple of notes actually end up sounding different. It was a little bit different to how I knew the part was. And when I was typing up my feedback about that bit, I remember saying, this bit, I'm pretty sure that Rosie's part is actually different. It should sound a little different, but I'm not going to tell you where it is because I think I actually prefer how it sounds now. So I'm going to keep it a secret what's wrong because I prefer it.
Did we ever change it?
No,
we didn't.
But I like it the way it is.
It sounds better.
It's only a very tiny thing anyway, so it's not important really.
So tiny, I never noticed.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the next one, Rosie?
I guess so. Yeah. So this is one that I wrote a couple of years ago. It was after reading a Guardian article that was to do with land subsidies, and it was about how the government were going to be giving some subsidies kind of based on acreage to people who owned land, and specifically owned land for shooting and kind of going out and doing grouse hunting and pheasant hunting and that kind of thing. And this was in the midst of austerity, which it's funny to be coming into another recession at this moment, and in that time, I graduated high school and was trying to get my first job in 2008, and I don't really think I'd realised until now how much of an impact that's really had on me, and the way that I approach work and all this kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to be back in that that place again now, 10 years on, with more experience. But it just really struck me that essentially those were the wrong people getting the government money. That people who owned enough to have land to go and shoot animals on probably owned enough to be doing that without the government giving them subsidies on their land and subsidies on their shotguns. And, that could be better spent on education and on, inner city
public infrastructure.
Yeah,
all
absolutely,
kinds of
absolutely. So it just really got under my skin, and I thought that what better a topic to write a song about, really. And one that kind of fit into this sort of poachers versus keepers kind of classic traditional ballad sort of form as well. So that's what I did. And it's a funny one because we've never really came up with a proper name for it either. Like, it's just in here as the poaching song. So for a while we were calling it David Cameron Get in the Bin. And it's which.
But that wouldn't have fit
when
on
I
the
wrote
back.
it.
There's not enough. There's not enough
Yeah.
space for that anyway. So
It
you know.
also ties it to a very
It dates the song.
particular
Yeah.
point in time, and like honestly, the lot of them can get in the bin as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, quite right.
but yeah. So this hopefully will make it a little more long lasting by just calling it the poaching song. But yeah,
I think there's no
Yeah.
better option than that.
yeah.
We mentioned in the last 2 albums, we've talked about how we've slowly become more radicalized as people, and I think by this album there's not even a shred of pretending to be impartial anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, absolutely, get rid of the lot of them.
Yeah.
3 young men of a poaching went to bag some game, was their intent. 3 old men to the court did go to talk about the lands that their fathers owned. Father Diddle died, oh Father Diddle Day. They didn't want to pay for the lands they maintained, nor to bear the cost for their own private gain. Their friends in the courthouse did eagerly agree, decided to give them a higher subsidy. Father Diddle died, oh Father Diddle Day. The 3 young poachers did quickly catch a hare, but they failed to realize they themselves were in a snare. A subsidy for shotguns, the rich men were well pleased. They sent the keepers to the wood, the poachers they had seized. Father Diddle died, oh Father Diddle Day. The poachers' wives were hoping for something for the pot, for though their share was small and bland, it was all that they'd got. The rich men didn't purchase their own luxuries, you see.
This makes me think again of something you were saying in the last album, Alex, where starting to think about using our voices as instruments as well as just voices.
To jail were sent, for they weren't lucky enough to be in the 1%.
I now can no longer hear that line without thinking of Bernie Sanders going, the 1%!
Were paying for their lands. Father Diddle died, oh Father Diddle.
I am never doing that impression again, by the way.
So come all lads and lasses, come listen to my song. The rich men worked inside the law, but still were in the wrong. With their hands inside the pot, there's nothing left for you or me. They're the criminals of this story, but they can still walk free. Father
Did you have any
died,
particular
oh,
inspiration for the tune? I've never asked you about the tune.
Father Diddle died, oh Father
I think yes. I do have a memory of it sort of being based on something, but I can't remember what it is now. Especially the refrain, the do 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 do. That feels like something else, but I can't remember what it is.
You've written such a classic song there, though, Rosie.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like it's something that could be sung in 50 years plus, and no one would ever know that it wasn't part of the tradition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Also, just goes to point out, Will, that across 3 albums, we've not got a Will Finn self-penned
Yeah.
song.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the reasons for that.
we can add one on the end.
But you're not my therapist, Pete.
I beg to differ.
Fair. But I think a lot of the thing, well, personally, I think what it comes down to for me is that I have never felt very good at like my one of my biggest enemies creatively is the idea of a blank page. I find it very, very hard to start from zero. Creating something from nothing is something that, at least to myself, I've never felt particularly good at. But I think of myself very much as a developer. I feel like I thrive best when I'm given the seed of something. When someone starts with something, gives me something, they say, you know, I found these 3 lines at the bottom of a broadside. Do you think you could make a round from it? Or, you know,
Just to pick a random example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, well, but this is if you let me finish, Pete.
So the next
Or-
track,
Or things like, you know, here is here's a street cry and some words to other street cries. Could you write tunes that complement? Or even, Will, here's a recording of me singing This Too Shall Pass 8 times, and I just kind of went on a bit of like a journey with it. What can you do with it? And I hear those things and I start seeing the branches. I start seeing the different directions it can go. I like taking something and growing it and, you know, developing it into something else, thinking, oh, we could go here, and oh, that could do that, and oh, and I could put that there, and instantly it starts kind of sparking in my brain. But the blank page, I get nothing. So songwriting is something that I quite like the idea of maybe adapting a poem or something like that, which wouldn't be starting from nothing. Finding a poem I like and putting it to music. I like that thought, and I've up till now, I've never put the time in. But it's something I'd like to do.
It's a similar approach, yeah. I think me and Kate have talked about this ourselves as well, and I think me and Kate have a similar approach to it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm alone in it. You know?
No, but it's one of those things that jump out to you in the moment. But when it comes to a poem, I don't even sit and go like, "Oh, I'm going to sit down. I want to create something now." It really is an accidental process. Whether it's like Labour and Man, which I put together, which was 2 traditional things shoved together, or whether it's the Celestial Tea, all of those were an accident. It was never. We're not like Nancy Kerr, who can just go, I'm going to write a song on this subject, go, and she writes the most incredible songs and keeps churning them out. Yeah.
Well,
I think you have these different kind of personality types as well, and some people are people who come up with a lot of ideas but can't kind of get them to an end point, and then you have people like probably all 4 of us probably have got quite a tendency to be natural, not just developers, but also collaborators. Like I could sit, even if you gave me an idea, if I sat on my own and tried to do something with it, the chances of me going very far with it would probably be quite low, which is not to say I wouldn't, but it's likely that I'd get fed up and stick it in a drawer. But there was one time we were working on a Highwayman ballad, and you came round to mine, and between the 2 of us, within an hour, we had a really good tune and a harmony part. And I couldn't have done either of those things on my own, but that being natural collaborators, I think, has really worked for us in the band, because you've never had like a dominant personality who said, right, these are all the songs we're doing and I'm not doing those, and it has to be this idea, and we've all kind of really given each other that space to kind of work together and bring new ideas and try stuff out.
I'm a big fan of the idea of people with complementary skill sets. I really like the idea of people working together. You can provide part of a whole, and it's exactly as you say, it's the collaboration that makes it something more than the sum of its parts. I've talked about that before.
Well, I think I speak on behalf of all of us, Will, when I say that your contribution is still very valid to all of the albums.
Why, thank you, Pete.
Talking of collaboration, I do want to talk about the next track before we play it, because this comes with a story we don't tell on stage, but I think is one of the most magical experiences I think we've ever had as a band creating music. This next one is a version of Dance to Your Daddy, My Little Man, but I have so many stark memories. We arranged this after I'd moved to America, and actually after I had my first kid. And so obviously me being away in America, we weren't hanging out as much anymore, and it wasn't just the fact that I was going to America. We weren't at university anymore. We weren't suddenly all doing the same things. We all had our own lives. So, time together was a lot less. So one thing we decided to do to put together some new material was to hire a cottage. And I can't remember where it was, but it was
near Manchester somewhere, because we went to
Greater Manchester.
Was it the Folk Expo or something? And it was a couple of days after we had a couple of days in a cottage after the expo.
It was something like that, yeah. And it was utterly gorgeous, and it was a beautiful setting. It was a beautiful. I have very bad memory, but I so starkly remember what the living room of this house was like, because the living room of this house is where we arranged several of the things on this album. But this one is one we had to keep coming back to, because this arrangement, I think it just hit a spot for all of us, that we got to parts of this arrangement we just had to stop because we were crying.
Yeah.
And part of that might have been tiredness, but there was I think we got this so nail on right. Like this is, I think, one of the most perfect arrangements we've done, because it, like, what we've talked about is how we've grown as performers and arrangers. We can tell a story through a song, and we've got all these different elements to the song that tie it together, and it gets me every time, and I still nearly cry, sometimes do cry at the end of performing this as well, because the arc of this song and the way we put it together is just, and it sounds like we're blowing our own trumpet hugely here, but like this, I don't think none of the other songs we've ever put together have had quite the emotional impact on all of us at the same time ever. And yeah, so with that, let's have a listen to it.
This is the never-ending will that we referred to in the last session.
Yeah, the world's longest breath.
Thou shalt have a fishy on a little dishy, thou shalt have a fishy when the boat comes in. Thou shalt have a haddock baked in a pan, and dance to your daddy, my little man. And dance to your daddy, my little laddie, dance to your daddy, my little man. And dance to your daddy, sing to your mommy, dance to your daddy, my little
man. It's really nice.
I was going to say that, Will the bass, yeah.
Another 1 in 3/4, Alex.
When thou art a young boy, you must sing and play. Go unto the shore and cast your shells.
It's quite interesting listening to the song now, because I'm actually rewriting the song at the moment. One thing I've realised, that I love the song dearly, and it's got a gorgeous story. But I'm singing it to my children, and I'm realising it has a lot of implied gender to it, and it's a very gendered song. And like, we've been thinking about gender a lot with our kids, and like we don't want to. We're realizing how much sort of like systemic sexism and ingrained sexism there is in things, and like this, I want this song to be applicable to anyone. It's such a lovely song, and this very much seems like this is a dad singing a song to what they're definitely assuming is a male son, and that's not an assumption I think I want in my parenting. So it's been really interesting trying to rewrite the song in a way that is accessible to all. And I haven't quite got it yet, but...
Sorry, you're saying something really right on and poignant, and our cat has just decided to come and get involved.
Yeah. with their butt. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
When thou art a man,
this verse, I have no idea how to rewrite.
Find yourself
but there's so many implications on that verse which really don't fit with how I think about the world anymore. This is really interesting.
I do really agree with you. It's tricky to know how to balance.
We could have a long conversation about it too, and there's a lot of songs that in the context it seems fine, but in the context of how I sing the song normally, it's a different thing, isn't it? I sing this as a song to my children, and it makes me think about it differently.
It's part of that's one part of a bigger discussion about how you sing things that represent ideas from a different time, and that's not just about gender, but that can be about, I mean, we're singing hunting songs and we don't approve of hunting, and some of these are more relevant to some people than others, or some time periods than others, and it's very difficult to sing something and make sure your listeners understand whether you're singing it because you believe the message, or whether you're singing it as a historical piece, or how you're putting that across. So I think folk music, always has lent itself to being adapted. Always has been adapted as time goes on, and I don't see any reason why that can't continue.
Well, someone during the big debate that's going on at the moment about Morris dancing and blackface, which is rightfully taking the correct direction of not blacking up anymore, which is 100% great. But someone made a point which I really like, and I wish I'd thought about this like it on our folk degree, actually. Let me just let this finish.
My little man.
Just love that last chord. So the point was, I was thinking that one thing a person said, which made me really think about it nicely, was that traditional music is an ever-evolving thing, and it's always changed. If you want to keep things the same, you're doing a reenactment, you're a reenactor, you are doing a reenactment fair. And this is one of the big things that I've had in my mind for a while, is that since that era of Cecil Sharp, particularly that era of the folk revival, where people were writing things down and recording things, there was that whole spawn of people that then became more reenactors. And though they didn't see themselves as that, they saw themselves as traditionalists because they were doing it as that was collected then. But really, what should have been that should have been the reenactors' approach. They were doing the reenactors' approach to things, and tradition took a sudden slowdown in English folk song because
it's that snapshot in time idea, isn't it?
Exactly.
Returning to that one point in time.
Yeah, and so people get really annoyed when something's changed, like the blackface thing, or they not singing these songs anymore, or changing words to a song, and it frustrates me because really tradition's always been an evolving thing, and like folk song now you probably know this better than any of us, Kate, from doing a lot of your broadside stuff, how these lyrical changes and story matters change, and how these songs have evolved. Tradition. Exactly, yeah. We could do a whole podcast on this, couldn't we?
Yeah,
but we probably shouldn't.
Just to quickly add on to that, I've been having thoughts recently about this and how much in folk music we're still seemingly comfortable with kind of the exoticization of gypsies, and how, like, I've been reading a lot about how, Romani people prefer not to use that word, and how it's still kind of extremely badly a lot of people in the traveller sort of community are treated and like discriminated against. And this is something for another time, I think, but just another thing to think about.
It's another progress, but I think it's a good progress that this conversation is happening now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves over the next few years, because
what happens.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a listener and you're enjoying this conversation, then let us know, and maybe we'll have further conversations in the future.
We'll start up a Teacups podcast.
That would be fun. Okie doke. So we're on to the final vignette, which is Alex's.
There's not much to say about it other than it's just another Radji one, really. And I've just gone on a rant about stuff, so I'm not going to go on a rant again, but let's listen to it.
Let's just allow you to musically rant.
Yes, okay, let's go.
But not the kind of stepping. Yeah.
Okay, good folk joke, Pete, but let's move on.
Thanks.
They hang the man and flog the woman who steal the goose from off the common, but let the greater villain loose, who steals the common from the goose. The law demands that we atone when we take things we do not own, but leaves the lords and ladies fine who take things that are yours and mine. They hang the man and flog the woman who steal the goose from off the common, but let the greater villain loose, who steals the common from the goose.
Short and snappy.
I absolutely love that from beginning to end.
It just says everything that you need to.
I found these, so I discovered, like, soon after finding those two verses, that there was actually a whole song, but the whole song was just faff in comparison to what those two verses did. Those two verses sum up the entire situation as it needs to be, and people know that I rant on too long sometimes, and that song doesn't do that. It is very precise. But one thing we put in the album notes, which we didn't say, I said I found it online. It's very ambiguous. What I actually did was it was a meme on Facebook. That I found those two verses on, and then they spoke to me so instantly that I just sat at the piano and was just like, I'm getting attuned to this straight away. And I didn't really know anything about it before we did it, but it was one of those moments you were talking about earlier that we don't set out to do something. It's just sort of that moment. And I remember very specifically having a very grumpy child on my lap who really didn't want me to be doing it, but I'm like, I have to do this now. It's coming to me. I never write things. Go.
I really love this tune as well. It's just so great, and I really love interesting time signatures as well. I just really, really great.
Yeah, this was not a fun one for Pete for click tracking.
And
Don't even remember how we did it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't remember.
Another instance of just completely mechanically phrases that are really fun to say and sing. I love the amount of kind of the power that you can get behind, and let the greater villain loose. It hits really well, just the sound of the words.
And in the very first line, the way that everybody says woman, they hang the man and flog the woman who steals her goods. Because we deliberately went for that kind of, almost that kind of tiptoey kind of like build up, I think, and the way that you let the words come out of your mouth is a big part of how that feel is formed, I guess.
I think as well, it's that very hammered rhythm that all the way through it that I think gives it such a poignancy to the words as well, because it really hammers the point home. And I think, like you're saying, Kate, about the way you say woman, it gives it that very and like ever growing feeling to it.
That was a very conscious thing with the tune going da 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 da. I was like, it's a very definite, like, this is the end of the point. On that note, this next one is utterly brilliant, but should we talk about it as it goes along, because it's quite a long
Well, I thought that there is no better introduction than what you've written in the sleeve notes. So I thought maybe I'd just read that and then play it, which is following on from the rapper set of Labour and Love. We're heading further south with some Cotswold Morris tunes. The first is a wonderful waltzified version of Oranges in Bloom from the Sherborne. Oh yeah, Sherborne tradition. The second is based on the Addisbury version of The Black Joke, and the third is a splendid version of Blue Eyed Stranger, which Alex learned from the Mary Neal's The Esperance Morris book.
I'm just going to jump in and interrupt super early doors to say this before we properly start. This first song has particular significance to me and Will, because this was our first dance together at our wedding, which Alex and our friend Nicola played, and it was just really, really lush.
This is the other one that I was referring to that was a nightmare to record, but all is forgiven because I had such a nice time mixing it. I absolutely loved the mixing process of this one.
It builds so naturally. It's no part of it sounds unnatural. It's so just really organic. I love it.
I know for a fact that Pete did a lot more work on this mixing than some of the other ones, and it's done such justice. And I think what's really nice, we were talking about us approaching our voices like instruments more in some ways, but Pete also on this track approached our voices as instruments in his mixing, I think. I don't know that, but it sounds like that's what you've done, and it's lovely.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed myself with it. I think it's one of the few on this album compared to others where I kind of let myself do that, really, because I just thought it, especially that opening tune, just needed it. There's so many of you all on that, a lot of parts. I just felt that it really needed. I often talk about those kind of ooh things as like a blanket, really, and I really just felt that Wills did such a good job on delivering that melody that I felt I just wanted to wrap it up in like blankets of you guys, and that's kind of how I wanted it to feel.
You do it so well, Pete.
Thank you.
And again, like, Kate does a fantastic job in the second tune with just like this
love
this
tune.
building excitement. It's so
And again, it's got that very similar pattern we were talking about right at the beginning with Agamemnon, that going up somewhere high and then kind of cascading right the way down again.
It's not here yet, it's coming up soon, but I know it's one of your favourite bits in this, the movement from the movement from Alex to you in the third tune.
So moving out of this tune where Alex is leading into the same tune with me leading it, it's my favourite bit of this song, but not because I'm singing the tune, it's because of what Alex does. It kind of goes right to this amazing low note, and it's just like, whoa.
And I think it's about to happen.
Shortly,
sure. I'm too early.
From the nerdy music point of view, this is the same chord pattern from the first tune. Not this bit, just the end music. But if you listen to Kate, what do you hear?
Not yet, not quite yet.
I am so proud of when we start bringing all the bits back.
Oh, hello, Will.
And hello, door again.
Here we go.
I know that one's long enough as it is, but I could honestly listen to / sing that last tune just forever and ever and ever and ever. I just love it.
I'm generally speaking not really a tunes person. I'm all about the songs and the words and the history of the words and the story and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I honestly think that is my favourite thing on this album.
Mine too.
Which means it's not only for me to say that as a songs person, it has to not only be as good as all the songs, but it has to be. I just love it. I absolutely love it. It's fun to sing. It was fun to rehearse. It was fun to tweak it, to put together. It was fun to record. There is nothing I don't like about that.
What I really like about it as well is that, you know, we'd done a instrumental. We'd done a sung tune on the second album, and so we really wanted to do something like that. And the one thing we thought about straight away was, you know, we really didn't want it to sound the same, because you know, we've done that trick, and if we're going to do it, it needs to be as good, or if not better, and very different.
Yeah, which is why I think it wasn't like about throwing a load of sticks and bell samples on it as well. Like, I think it needed to have a different approach to the whole thing.
And what I really like about this one is that it, even though it doesn't have any words, it has a journey. The whole thing has this sort of narrative journey from starting to this small, gorgeous piece, to like this quoting of all the things in this big way at the end. It has an arc to it, which I don't think the Rapper set had so much, other than like it had an intro song and then we sang some tunes. Like this has an arc, and it's a long track as well. It's one of the longest on the album. And it's just really cleverly done. Well done, us.
Something I find really interesting as well is what you say about it not having words so much, but like I feel as though each of us leading a bit of it, kind of, we've all got quite a different way of lilting. Like we all use different syllables. So I think that in the Rapper set, because I started doing that one and brought it, and then you kind of all just do what I do.
I think you'll find that I came up with door.
Exactly.
And
so good it is again.
But there was when we were doing the Black Joke bits, I think it was the day it was just me and Pete, and I remember having a conversation with Pete about what syllables to use, and the fact that I didn't really mind what was going to happen as long as I managed to avoid yabba dabba doo. because the way that the Black Joke goes, it kept happening, and I was going, no, I can't say that. That's Scooby Doo. That's not right, or whoever it is. No,
the Flintstones.
Yeah, not Scooby Doo. So I was just thinking, all the time I was doing it, my brain was going, don't say yabba dabba doo, don't say yabba dabba doo.
That's amazing.
You know.
So
but
we're gonna go,
just to give a bit of a shout out to Alex, I have to say, I think that section of the album, the My Little Man and the Goose and the Morissette, is kind of my favourite chunk of the album, I think. And you know, they're quite all heavily Alex influenced, because the Morissette really, I think, if I remember rightly, was mostly Alex's.
The first tune, so the Orange and Bloom, I actually presented you all with a sheet music for it,
right?
And
okay.
go, this
I couldn't
is
remember
the
how
idea
much
I have.
it was.
And then we kind of built it from that, because I didn't write any arrangements for the rest of the tunes, but that kind of influenced what then came, and then we kind of built it together. But yeah, I am the Morris nerd in the.
I was going to say you're the Morris.
Hooray!
Well, we're approaching the end. Just a couple more tracks to go, and I think we're moving on to what in Teacups times past might have been the obvious closing track. I don't know how much you want to say about it, Will, or not.
I think that this was a track that I've wanted to do for ages, but I knew that I wanted to do it right. I didn't just want to half-ass it. And I think that it was a song that we kind of started putting together, and I don't really think we finished it until a little while afterwards. But we started it. Kind of, Kate was talking earlier about kind of, or both Kate and Alex were talking about sort of periods of this album, because it's been so long in the making. We've all kind of gone through different sort of hard times, really. And yeah, this was kind of during a tougher time with myself as well, where kind of you know, brass tacks. My mum had a really serious diagnosis, and yeah, it was kind of, I was starting to have to engage with the thought realistically for the first time that there was a very real, that, you know, to all likelihood, I was looking at a future very soon where, you know, my mum wasn't going to be around anymore. And I already knew this beautiful, beautiful song. And so kind of that was kind of what was going through my mind when I knew I wanted to really do it justice. And thankfully that never actually came to pass. And you know, my mum's still around and hopefully will be for many years to come.
Had kind of an incredible recovery. Like
yeah,
it was really like people were saying you've got months kind of thing, and that was
she
nearly
was
10 years ago.
she
at
was
this
given a
point,
median life expectancy of 9 months, and this was
like, years and years and years ago at this point.
somewhere. Yeah, this was
Second year of uni, I think.
so yeah, that's getting on to like 7 years ago or something like that. Seven
Yeah.
to 10 years ago. But yeah, so a phenomenal beating of the odds, I guess. But yeah, and I think that we do this song really like justice, and so I'm so glad that it is now in the form that it is. And just kind of, yeah, I think that song is kind of always going to have that link to me now, but it's such a lovely song, and yeah, I'm
Great.
glad with how it's turned out.
Well, let's take a listen.
It's been a year since last we met. We may never meet again. I have struggled to forget, but the struggle was in vain. For her voice lives on the breeze.
Some more really nice versatility from Alex, jumping from kind
I was
of
just going to say,
quite
really,
high tenor right down
really
to
testing
bass.
your range there, yeah.
Lovely versatility.
It's a really hard one to do live.
Yeah, I mean,
Have we ever done
recording.
this one though?
I think we've done it at least
Maybe
once, right?
Once or twice, maybe.
Because I remember this song always chokes me up as well. It always reminds me of makes me think of my late mother-in-law. So it always gets me. And then trying to sing that high to low part at the same time as getting choked up and being emotional, it's a really tough song.
Must be really tough to do that.
One of the first.
Yeah,
I've known the song for quite a few years now, but one of the first really lovely arrangements of it was by Andy Parr, who we've talked about in the previous kind of listen throughs, and he did this for one of his interim recitals during university, and he did such a beautiful job of it that like I heard him sing it and I was like, I want to do as good a job as that, and we've done just as good a job in a different direction. I'm very proud of.
Sweet dreams my senses fill, and from sleep when I arise, a bright smile haunts me still. And from sleep when I arise, her bright smile haunts me still. I have sailed 'neath alien skies.
I remember when we recorded this, Will, really working on those differences between the areas of your voice that come through in this, and those times where, you know, you're almost barely singing. I remember really working on those barely singing bits, and then verses like this where it's really fully from your chest. And I think those little contrasts really come across so nicely in it.
It's a lovely lesson, which I in fact think that I can mostly attribute to you, Pete, where you've really taught us a lot about the differences between recording an album and performing live, and you can almost liken it to the difference between stage acting and television acting, where on a stage you have to, and singing live, you have to project. It has to be very sort of, you have to be able to project to everyone. Everyone has to be able to see or hear what you're doing. But when you're filming for TV or film, or when you're recording an album, you can get really close. And I think that's something that we use to really powerful effect in that I don't have to be singing to a huge room. I can be singing to a mic that's here, and it can be so lovely and close. Yeah.
I think when you work with artists that have come out of folk clubs specifically and done a lot of acoustic gigs as well, it's always one of those things. And you're right, I attribute that to something I saw in my teens. I think it was either Patrick Stewart or maybe Ian McKellen or someone like that did a big talk and did loads of these demonstrations between like, I'm going to play the same two things but as if I was doing it on stage or if I'm doing it on TV, and how like the TV things are just like a raised eyebrow portrays all the same thing that this massive gesture does on stage. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's so fascinating. And then as I've gone into recording and production, I thought that's really is the same thing about the art of making a record, isn't it? That you need to give the listener something different to you do in a live scenario, especially in something as exposed as a cappella singing.
I remember early on in recording the second album, the first one we did all together, I remember you saying something along the lines of, do it again, but like less singy. You don't need to be so singy.
I think that's become one of my favourite phrases over working with you guys.
I know exactly what you mean. Like,
yeah, I think over the years that we've worked together, the just sing it a little bit less is like totally does become one of the things.
But what's really nice is you let us do it, and I know for a fact there's at least 2 or 3 takes on each of the tracks where you let us just be our singy selves, so we can get out of our system and also be warmed up enough. And then you go, okay, now behave. Come on.
All right, now you had your fun.
You aren't going to get the good take unless you let us do the duff takes first. Yeah. Definitely.
Amazing.
Well, quite emotionally, we've come to the last track of the last album and the last thing that we'll listen to as part of these little listen-alongs, but also the last hurrah of the end of a Teacups album, which I feel personally quite emotional about. I guess you guys must as well. But what a cracking way to go out. I don't know who wants to kind of introduce this one.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, kind of.
It is a little bit odd kind of doing a very seasonal song right at the very end. This song is one that was really adapted from something else. Rosie and I were commissioned to do a project a few years ago now of creating a songbook for community choirs of traditional English repertoire. And the Sugar Wassail is one of the arrangements that we have in that book, which is available. So it meant that we brought it to the group because we thought it would be a really nice one to do with the Teacups, and we performed it for a little while, just the arrangement as it is in the book, with sort of the Teacups trio, while Alex has been over in the States. And we knew we wanted to fold Alex into it, so it was interesting having almost a finished product already and then trying to adapt it into something else. And it meant that something we've found over the years is that sometimes when we start putting something together, it turns out that the best way that it'll work is when we all actually need to sort of swap parts and we need to sing some different things. And actually, I thought I was going to be the bass, but it turns out I'm actually going to be better as the alto, and and everything kind of moving around. So it meant that Alex got to sort of have his input and create a whole new line to add to it.
Yeah, that was the hard thing that exists. So I created a line that I thought really worked, but I could not sing it. It was too high. And actually, as it turns out, it's too high really for Will. But you know,
but you do a dang good job.
Really borderline. It's touch and go.
but it is interesting, like you say, that so many of our arrangements, we haven't really talked about how we create things that often. But so many of the times we'll all write a part and swap it around because actually it turns out that sounds better in someone else's voice. It's really interesting because I think in this one, Kate is the bass singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really,
Yeah.
but it
So
also
I
that
am.
changing that around is really nice, because what is now created is I'm singing the melody and Kate's
So you're
doing
the
the bass,
soprano.
but hello. But it gives a whole different sound, and it makes everything closer in a way that sticking to a traditional SATB wouldn't do. And so I think by accident it stumbled across a really lovely arrangement that is similar, but not that similar to what you had originally come up with. Yeah.
I just love the tune of this one as well, because it kind of starts off with the same tune as God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, one of the tunes of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, and then it just goes in this different direction. The first time I heard it, I was like, ooh. So I just knew we had to do it.
So Merry Christmas, enjoy.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a Teacups album if you weren't allowed to let your accent loose somewhere, Al. And I think
no,
this
do I? Oh,
and
no.
I think this is the only chance you really had on this one.
I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Oh, wassail, wassail, we begin with sugar strands and cinnamon and all good treasures in. With a wassail, a jolly wassail.
I don't have much of a
And
bass,
may
really.
joy come to you and to our wassail. If you've any mates within your houses, I suppose
I love this one
you
because
can.
Rosie in particular, you just sound like you're having an absolute whale of a time when you're singing it.
I am. I'm having the greatest time. Especially with the way Alex says jolly. Jolly. I just had to join in with it, you know?
And this is another hark back to that wonderful observation of Pete's from My Accordion Hands. This is one of those accordion hand songs, and it's very much live. There's a photo of us performing this song live, and I am like that, and it is so true.
And may joy come to you and to our wassail. Bring out your silver tankard, likewise your kissing sphere. We'll come no more a wassailing until another year. With a wassail, a jolly.
I just love that unison moment there in that chorus. It's so good.
And to our wassail, oh wassail, we begin with sugar strands and cinnamon.
I just feel like I can really hear all of your personalities on this one.
Wassail, a jolly wassail, and may
I can hear myself smiling. Like, I can hear it, you know?
It's the end of the refrains that I love your bits, Rosie. I can just imagine you going.
And may joy come to you.
This bit is like that.
And to our wassail.
That's hands.
Yeah.
It's a cracking
so
ending.
Good. Oh, I love it.
And there we have it.
There we have it.
There it is.
That's all, folks.
Yeah.
That was quite
Well,
a journey.
it
Well, I
really
think
feels
if no
like
one's,
it.
I was just going to say, sorry, my internet broke up then, which is why it's weird. But,
Well, it wouldn't be a Zoom call without awkward silence somewhere, and we've done it. We've managed to wait till the very end, so this is good.
yeah. I think there's three things I want to say. Firstly, a huge thank you from all of us to the Kickstarter backers who, without whom we wouldn't have been able to make this one at all. And I'm really glad we did, because it's, as we've hopefully demonstrated over the course of this discussion, there's a lot on here that we hadn't done before, and a lot of stuff that is a bit new, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to not only arrange and perform that, but have the recording experience and produce this album. So I'm really grateful, as are we all, to every single person who contributed to that. And I think we owe a big thank you and several pints to Pete, who has been brilliant, really, throughout both of the albums. Speaking for myself, I find the recording process a really intimidating and difficult and not always pleasant experience. But having got to know Pete better as an engineer over the course of that second album, which was his first with us, this one I felt much more relaxed about, and I had fun doing it. And I never thought I would, if you told me, 10 years ago that I'd enjoy the recording process, I'd have said, don't, just forget that. That's never going to happen.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's a really fun experience doing that. And your approach has been a huge part of that fun. So I've got some good memories of that. And just to be a bit squishy for a moment, I really miss singing with the three of you.
Yeah, me too.
It's not just been difficult over lockdown. It's like since uni, everybody's life really did go off in different directions. Not just Alex's geographically, but the three of us left here as well. And we've all been doing different things, and it's just been really, really difficult. I found it very difficult to find not just the physical time, but when you've got new responsibilities, different responsibilities, and you're being pulled in all different directions, it's just really difficult to get things like this to come together. And I think that's kind of been a big part of why this one took so long as well, because we just
definitely.
Well, and
it wasn't just Alex being away; it was stuff that was over here between us as well, and things that were happening. So I've really enjoyed singing with you all over the last 10 years, and I hope it won't be the last time. But
it's hard to know. Like it hit home a lot when we finally made that decision, which it didn't come out of the blue that we were going to ourselves, that we were going to sort of wrap up the journey musically together. But when we finally made that decision, it was still emotional, even though we kind of all knew we were reaching that point. But it's somewhat hit a new level right now, because we were supposed to be on a farewell tour, and we're not sure if we're going to be able to do one final sing together at the moment.
It might not even happen.
It might not even happen at this point, and so I find that really, really hard to know that. Well, one, it's just weird to launch an album without a tour. We're very good at launching an album without an album, and then doing a tour. But it's just this whole period is just not what we imagined, and no one could ever predict a global pandemic, and we kind of had this album, sort of this grand plan of this album, and doing a final tour, and doing a last hurrah, and being together, and finishing in a big style, in a way that we'd want to finish, and even organizing our own finishing parties, one in the north, one in the south, so we could kind of have our own evening to celebrate being the Teacups. And I'm finding that really hard, having that uncertainty of knowing that we might not do that, and we might not be able to sing together again. And this when it broadcasts, might potentially be the last thing we do as a piece. And that makes me upset. And maybe once this pandemic is over, we'll be able to do one last show when I'm back over again. But again, we just don't know when that is going to be, and it's a tough thing to think about, because it's not what we had planned, and it makes this wrapping up of this chapter so much harder when we can't actually wrap it up in the way we wanted to by singing together. And I'm gonna miss that a lot. And as it goes into the fall, when we would have been touring, it's gonna be on my mind a lot, and it's gonna make me miss you all even more, I think. But it has been a delight to be able to sing with you for these 10 years, and I know we're not going to get rid of each other, so that's we've still got the secret forum group, and we've still got messages, and we can still send ourselves stupid pictures every now and then. It's going to be lovely. But it's still not the same as being in a room together.
I think as well, just to say, I'm really proud of this work that we've done together as well. I think having had a chance to do this kind of retrospective and look back at the albums has been so nice, because a lot of the time I kind of forget about the things that we've done, and I'm kind of just so focused on what I'm doing now or what's going to happen next, that it's hard to remember to look back and go, oh no, we made that thing and it was great. So I'm just really proud of all of us for for sticking with it for so long, you know, and kind of making such lovely things.
It's so hard, isn't it, when you work in an industry that requires you to be so much more than the thing that you are, which is a singer and a musician and a creative, to get lost in the mail outs and the who's posting what CD and all of that kind of thing, and to forget the joy of what brings everybody together ultimately. But likewise, listening back through the 3 albums and thinking about the chronological time that it all sits into, it's such a lovely experience to kind of remember all the processes and everything that triggers in memories. It's been great.
Thank you very
I think
much,
the one
Pete.
thing I really hope people take away from it is exactly that kind of enjoyment, the joy of doing it, whether that's, you know, having come to one of our live performances and, you know, put up with our terrible jokes as much as they've joined in with our, you know, rowdy choruses or whatever. It's been a huge joy to be part of it, and I hope other people have been able to join in with that.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it all, really, is just with it's just with a big thank you to everyone, to each of you, from all of us to everybody else, from you guys to everyone that's listened over the years, and from me to you guys for having me along for a good chunk of the journey as well, and to finish with being here for these little listen-alongs too. So I think just a big thank you to everybody, listeners, and to you guys, and to me, and etc. And we'll see you all on the road somewhere soon, and hope that this isn't the end of it.
Please tell people to buy the album, because we're not taking it on tour.
Oh yeah. This is one legitimately where people might have actually come to it without owning the album.
Yes,
yet,
so
yeah.
So hopefully we've chatted all over it.
Yeah.
But it's true, during this pandemic time, we're not saying just to us, but, you know, so buy our CDs and help support us. But go, like, no artists are really gigging at the moment, so go out, support artists by buying merchandise, buying albums if you haven't got them,
Directly if you can,
and directly from them, from their shops, or from, in our point, directly from Pete from the Haystack Records store. Direct purchases like that are going to help sustain.
Bandcamp's better than
Bandcamp,
Spotify. Please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get off Bandcamp, that would be great.
But the one way any of this industry is going to have a chance to come back is being able to keep supporting the artist, keep supporting the venue. If a local venue is running a campaign, or there's ways you can support by, like, buying takeout from there, or there's a lot at stake on this in this industry right now. And if you can support the venue, so we've got somewhere to go back to perform, support the artist, so the artist can keep this journey going. That is one of the biggest things we can take from this right now. So buy our albums, but buy everyone else's albums, and keep music alive for when it comes back.
Well said.
All right.
Yeah, on that bombshell.
On that bombshell. Love you all.
See you soon.
We'll see you all soon. Bye.
Take care.
I have
Bye.
seen the storm arise like a giant in his wrath. Every danger I have known that a reckless life can fill, yet her presence is not flown. Her bright smile haunts me still, yet her presence is not flown. Her bright smile haunts me still.